In this episode of the Texas Private School Podcast, can Central and Concordia throw off the yoke of Northern oppression? Can Fort Worth Christian make a statement win in District 2? Will Claudio Torres will St. Joseph's pass Lutheran South? And can Hill Country steal a playoff win in their first season in 11-man football? All this and more in the playoff preview of the Texas Private School Podcast. Hello and welcome back to a special episode of the Texas Private School Podcast. Playoffs are upon us. I feel like we started the season yesterday, but we are here at the start of the end of the road. As always, I'm one-third of your hosting crew, Wes Tolleson. Walker Lott joins me from College Station, Texas. Ryan Schroeder survived the bear attack in the woods of Transylvania, is back with us today, calling in from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Ryan Schroeder, thank you for being back. I'm sorry for your struggles with the large mammal in the woods. Glad you're alive.
We don't need really to go over it. I mean, it's just one of those things where like place I should not have been that I was, and like a lot of stuff happened, a lot of insurance stuff right now. Don't want to bore you with it at the moment, but we'll get through it. Well, it's not a problem.
Yeah, I've heard bear insurance is kind of hard to work through, but happy
Crazy,
you're all right. That
crazy.
is that
Yeah.
is the main priority. Walk a lot. We
Yep.
are on the edge of the playoffs. They start in less than 24 hours when this episode comes out. Your thoughts?
No, very excited. We've done a lot of bracketology behind the scenes. I feel like John Rothstein or yeah, there's a poll for college basketball, but
That's good.
it's very fun, very good. I want to shout out a guy from Kincaid. This is a new hat that I've worn for the first time because someone at the Kincaid game, as I'm leaving the field, a player for them ran up to me and was like, "Can I have a hat?" And I thought he meant a Kincaid, like one of those championship hats that I had. And I was like, "Oh, you didn't get one?" And he goes, "No, I want that hat." And it was my TXPS hat. And I was like, "You mean my hat?" He goes, "Yes." I'm like, "Sure." And I give him my hat. And then he just runs off. And he says, "Thanks," and runs off. And so now a kid has a TXPS hat that has been worn by me. But this is the new, it's just such a random story that I had to share on the episode. So
Did you
You,
autograph it?
you sign it? Did you sign it and say
no,
from
no,
Precious Walker Lot?
Am I the only one
no.
on this podcast that's ever autographed anything for anyone?
No, did you actually autograph
Did
something
you
for someone?
Yes,
actually?
dude, for the little DC
Oh,
kids at
oh
2022
yes.
Oh,
state.
yes.
I have videos of that. Yes, that is
Yes.
hilarious. Oh my gosh.
That
I
video
think
is on no
Oh my
context.
god.
as our interns have kind of told us, like somehow people know us, and that kind of is crazy at times. Um,
No.
they were making fun of us the other day, and maybe we deserve it at times, but it's all in good fun. And it's sometimes like we always say, it's crazy that we are the media.
I gotta hand it to the finally. I think the SBC burners will wind down towards the end of football, but I got to give it to them. They said I was not Parker McCollum under that post, and I went back and looked, and that was a Walmart Parker McCollum fit. Uh, don't care. We'll probably wear it again at some point in the playoffs, but that did give me a little chuckle, Walker.
No, yeah, absolutely. It was
I was
oh, what?
I was just gonna say I thought you had something to say.
No. No, I do
Yeah, I
not.
have something to say. That fit, you always show up in the craziest fits. He goes, "Yeah, I'm just coming off work. This is what I look like." And then he shows up to Prestonwood Parish or whatever it was, and he's dressed the exact same y'all are
As
bro.
Spencer.
Yeah, you and Spencer wearing the exact same thing. What was the other thing? No, just every time I go anywhere with you, he's always dressed to the nines, and I'm wearing sweatpants because I come from a 3 hour drive. So it's like, yeah, no, it's okay.
Are we
Everyone
dressing
wants to
are
know.
we dressing up for state, or what are we doing,
No,
Wes?
I'll have
no.
fits. I'll have fits. I'm
Oh,
not wearing like a three-piece suit, but I'll
yeah.
I'll have decent fits.
All right, we'll have
The
to.
boots will come with me, is what I'll say. But
Oh
by
my
the way,
gosh.
I guess I am getting old because remember I was on my feet from because I went to the Arkansas Baylor basketball game afterwards and we walked around there. But I was on my feet from like 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. that day in those boots. My calves hurt for 3 days after that ended, dude. It was a problem. So maybe that's what 23 looks like, something for all of the young bucks to look forward to. And I guess the dads on the program can relate to it. Age to Father Time is undefeated. But
True.
that being said, we'll start to get into the meat of the episode. The first thing we're going to talk about that I can't make heads or tails of is the TAPS Division II District 2 playoff bracket, how it shaped out. Basically, yes, we will get to that, Walker, after this. However, so what happened was the standings go as follows. Regents is number 1. There's no debate there. After that, it now goes Hyde Park is 2nd, Grace is 3rd, Brook Hill is 4th. We put out the bracket. We put out our bracket having Hyde Park 2nd, Brook Hill 3rd, Grace 4th. Because that would make the most sense based off point differential between those 3 teams. Grace is -12, Brook Hill is -5, Hyde Park is 17. And then we were like, okay, maybe we got something wrong here. Maybe it's total district point differential. So we calculated that 5 minutes before the episode started. Brook Hill is +53, Grace is -13. I don't understand how this works. And this is a Grace alum saying this. I would, if there was any possible way that I could make a case for Grace being 2nd in this district, I would, or 3rd, I'd push for it. It just doesn't make sense. Walker, we've run all the scenarios. I don't have a clue how Grace takes 3rd and Hyde Park or Brook Hill takes 4th. Can you make any sense of this?
No, I can't. That is just TAPS in a nutshell, I think. I don't know, man. Someone's gonna from Grace or Brook Hill that somehow listens to this podcast, please let us know, because I truly have no idea. I don't get it. I had to contact people, and I look at it and they say this is how it is, and I'm like, that's just not shouldn't be how it is. And if you do it between those 3 teams that were 4 and 2, it still should be one way. If you do it point differential between the districts, it still is one way. If you do it like what overall record, maybe Brook Hill's 6 and 4, Grace is 7 and 3. It still doesn't work. So like, I don't get how the only way it would work is between Grace and Brook Hill. Like if it's just the game that decides that, but that doesn't make sense because then
why would Hyde Park stand out there? Because it's the snake eats each other in the triangle. Doesn't make sense. It
doesn't make sense because then that discredits Brook Hill's winner against Hyde Park. I don't get it. It doesn't make sense. I am now irked. I am I'm peeved. Is that a word?
Yep, that's a word.
Yeah, I am irate because of this. And I need this to be solved for the greater good of TAPS. As the current and the only bracketologist of private school football, it hurts me deeply.
The only thing that you said there that made sense when it came to sorry, that's the lowest of blows. That's not what I meant. No, the only thing that made sense that you said was overall record. Is Grace's overall record is 7 and 3, and Brook Hill's overall record is 6 and 4.
Right.
But why? But why would that ever be the qualifier when it's district play? Why? Right. That's literally never a qualifier.
And okay, if you're gonna do that, and they're both 4 and 2, Hyde Park went 6 and 4. So Grace Community should be the number 2 spot. So,
yeah, that's what we should take away from this.
Yeah, sorry.
I don't know.
Grace beat a couple School of the Blinds.
Yeah,
New Boston, Pittsburgh, Queen City. Yeah, come on. Who are these
Congratulations
people?
on the win.
That's East Texas' finest.
Goodness gracious.
But no, in all seriousness, I'm sure like there's no way TAPS just looked at it and said, let's throw them in a random number generator and figure it out.
I have a suspicion.
I could honestly see if this came down to a coin flip. I honestly wouldn't doubt that.
I have a suspicion. I think points were because this was something. I think this was something that was going to be like the last thing. I think, and this is just me being what is it, a conspiracy theorist? Yeah. I think these games were already lined up and ready to go. Like travel was already booked to Midland and stuff, like a week before it was confirmed, and they were just like, we're just going to keep it as it is. So that's my thoughts.
Games were already loaded into max preps on some of these, but don't. I didn't say that.
That's all I'm saying.
To be completely honest with you, this isn't going to change the overall outcome at all. I am famous for being the person on this podcast that says at the end of the day, the best team's going to win state. You don't want to be the team that goes out in the first round when ultimately you should have made a semifinal. But at the end of the day, the ultimate result should not be affected by this. It's just odd how we got here. But I'm sure there was a process. People smarter than me made this. It'll turn out how it turns out. The last thing I'm going to ask before we get in the episode, because it's an interesting thing I thought of, before we got into it. It's a question. It's, do y'all make picks based more on team resume or on individual players or matchups? I'm going through and trying to pick these games, and I'm realizing I fall into the resume category. I look at, in the past, I think I've looked at matchups and individual players, but that's led me into a trap. And I feel like the resume overall is a more repre- representative
Mm,
thing.
talk to
That's
him.
a great word, thing. But Walker, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on whether, when you're picking these games, does team resume or individual matchups and players hold more weight?
Matchups, not as much. I think it's interesting where, I think a game like, okay, hypothetically, right? First Baptist versus Holy Cross, right? Matchups did definitely play a role into there because you think First Baptist, they're gonna have the better wide receivers, right? But matchup wise, the ground and pound attack by that team and physicality played a better role in that. So yeah, I think a little bit of that. But individual players, you would go, First Baptist. But then there's a team like I think about it. I think about the old days of Shiner St. Paul, right? Where Shiner St. Paul just they didn't have the big time players in D4, but they just matchup wise they beat anyone, stuff like that. Then you think of it like Liberties, right? Where the individual players kind of stand out in games like that, where what Janusek is going to make a bigger play. So in a game like Prestonwood or Parrish, right? You kind of know the individual players are going to stand out more. So yes and no. I think overall, though, you kind of just look at the team overall, right? If they have five, six dudes that are going to play at a very high level or are going to make impactful plays, you kind of go that way. So, not just one player, but more of like a group of players that the team itself is better. So, um, yeah, that's my thing.
Ryan Schroeder, I'm curious to hear your opinions whether team resume or individual players and matchups hold more weight whenever we come to picking games.
Yeah, so the sorry. God, I gotta think I dude, why did you say I have a gun? I can't. Oh, hold on. All right, I gotta lock in. I gotta lock in. Toward the start of the season, I think a lot of the stuff in my head, because I had had that whole year off, was really just about like legacy, I guess, if you know what I'm saying. Like who had truly the legacy over time of like being the best team in this private school eras and stuff. And so then I eventually the game started going, and then these non-district games where they're playing teams I have no idea what they're about. I'm literally going off of basically just program identity and stuff, and like some of the players I know. But then when we got later in the season, I knew who was better than each other kind of thing. And so I kind of just went off that and resume, like you said. Um, or sorry, I went off basically just what I knew. And then if I didn't really know the matchups and stuff, 100% resume and district opponents that were the same. And yeah, I mean, that's just how do you not when it comes to certain points and stuff like that? But there are points where myself, I just picked because I thought a team was going to win. And that turned out being right 4 or 5 at the time. So last week did not go that same way. Hence why my pick record is
Number two.
trash cans.
Yeah, we didn't talk
Yeah,
about that.
no.
How does it
Yeah,
feel?
yeah.
How does it feel for me passing you again, Ryan?
Okay, I'm sorry. Actually, I'm not going to say anything too hateful because there are certain people that I would love to dog right now for losing my pick record, but I'll keep it back. I'll keep it back. It's not their fault. It's not their fault. It's not their
That's
fault that I
growth.
go
We're
two
about
two
growth
and
here.
seven, 2-7 and a 3-7 season. It's not too bad. It's not too bad of a season, I guess.
All right. Anyways, on that note, we're going to move on. This script took me longer to write than any script we've done so far, just because, it's the playoffs and I wanted to do my due diligence. So strap in. It's going to be a lot of me monologuing for the first part of all of these games. And we will start down south with Bishop Lynch versus Concordia Lutheran. Nothing like a good old fashioned D1 North versus South matchup to kick off the 2024 playoffs. Concordia is the fifth seed out of the South and has been eccentric this season, to say the least. They started the season at 5-0, but failed to best any of the contenders at the top of Division One, except for St. Michael's, who they routed 45-14 on their senior night. The Crusaders have touted impressive numbers, averaging 39 points per game and 13 allowed on the season, though those numbers may be inflated due to big wins over bad opponents early in the season. Senior quarterback Tanner Huckfeld has proven he's that dude for the Crusaders. He will have to find weapons Noah Castillo and Alex Kaiser and allow Malik Liberty to open things up as well. On the flip side, Bishop Lynch is 5-5 on the year and took the 4 seed out of the North. Senior running back Will Estes has been the workhorse for the squad, totaling 14 touchdowns on the season and averaging over 100 yards on the ground per contest. Senior Ty Bradley will be Matias Leon's top receiving target, as Ishmael Muhammad will be a threat as well. Lynch is interesting because they have certainly played a tougher schedule, but they weren't able to keep it close with the big three, excluding only a 15-point loss to Prestonwood. They also lost 20-3 to Midland to start the season. The mantra has always been, all things equal, you take the North to beat the South in the playoffs. However, the North and South both won 4 games in last year's playoffs.
True.
For teams not named St. Thomas last year, Antonian beat TCA and Lynch beat Central Catholic in the same 4-5 matchup. The same thing happened in 2021 when Lynch beat Central in the 4-5 after an atrocious season. I think Concordia is legit, especially after that win over St. Michael's. And I almost talked myself out of this in the midst of reading the preview. However, I'm not betting against the data. Give me Bishop Lynch in this spot. You might see this as a theme throughout the episode. I'm sticking to my guns. There's a lot of things in my gut that are screaming to take certain teams. I'm relying on what I have seen in the past 4 years. And in this spot, I think it's Lynch. Lynch is always one of these teams that has underperformed in the regular season. And then we realize how much stronger the North is than the South, and they prove it in these exact spots. Walker, an interesting matchup, certainly. Your thoughts?
This will be a fun one. I'm excited for you to probably be at this game, right? I think that you're going to be down to Mesquite in this one. So very excited for that. Man, I'm so conflicted because I've been probably the biggest Concordia fan on this podcast all year, right? Like I've been Tanner Huckfeld's a hype man. I think he's legitimately a D1 FCS caliber quarterback. I think he's a dude. And they have weapons. Jaden Jones is a guy you didn't even mention that I think is really, really good. There's a lot of pieces on this Concordia team that can be really good. And you saw it last week against St. Mike's when they finally put it together. Man, they can be something special. I'm gonna pick Lynch though. I know. And also for people that don't know, like this week is gonna be basically the pick record probably. So this is monumental games, and I think I love Concordia, but I don't think I love Devin Scott too at the corner position, and he's gonna have his uh games worth and Ty Bradley and Ishmael Muhammad. Those guys are going to be difference makers, and I just think they're going to be too much of a difference maker. And I like Will Estes on the ground. I think the close loss to Presswood is going to take me over the edge of picking Lynch. That is what kind of solidified it for me. I think they're a good team. I think both teams have players that can go play top college ball. But I like in games like this having difference makers like Ishmael Muhammad and Ty Bradley and Will Estes running the ball. So give me, um, Bishop Lynch. But I don't know.
Ryan Schroeder, your thoughts?
I just want to shout out Bishop Lynch. Your website is gorgeous. Your athletic website is gorgeous. It's made by Sidearm, which is Learfield, so that makes more sense now that I look at that. But overall, I'm glad everything was easy to find. Side note, that's all I have to say, honestly. I think that's probably enough for me to make the pick as well. Also, the fact that I like Dallas teams more than the South in D1 anyways, but that's nothing against Concordia. I truly think that Bishop Lynch just had a more impressive schedule when it came to the district slate. Yeah, I mean, they kept it close between teams that they had to keep it close with. 5-5 on the surface doesn't look great. But then, yeah, and then you realize that it's 15 points with Prestonwood. They get the win over Legacy when Legacy was touted to be potentially 500 in district from a certain person. So you just overall a great season by Bishop Lynch. And yeah, the last 2 games you'll look at and be like, oh, 26, 29-point loss or 36 and 29-point loss. Like those aren't good games, but I don't read anything to Liberty and Parish. I think they still have a feeling that they could get it done. And I think after back-to-back losses like those, I think you're out and ready to win this one, especially when it's being played up in the Dallas area. Give me Bishop Lynch.
We will see. It will be a fun one. As Walker mentioned, this is the game I will be at on Friday, and I'm incredibly excited to witness it. Let us move on to another D1 matchup, Legacy versus Central Catholic. We will see an identical Division I 4-5 seed matchup when Legacy makes the long trip south to San Antonio to do battle with the Buttons. 2 straight years has Central Catholic been in this 4-5 matchup, and 2 straight years they have lost. As for this season, the Buttons have done decently, 6-4 overall and 4-3 in district. The only decent win on this schedule is a 20-18 win over Concordia Lutheran, but Central kept it close with St. Michael's and was within a single point of Antonian last week. This offense is still led primarily by Garrett Tyser and Xavier Rulas, both very talented runners, as well as talented wide receivers Jeremy Birch and Jack Hall. Defensively, Travis Dyla is the standout on the front seven, and a secondary consisting of Avon Houston and Matthew Hernandez could give the Legacy offense some trouble. As for the Eagles, they are also 6-4 on the season, and this basically is the North's version of Central. Their best win on the season is probably Brook Hill. They've lost to the big three in the division, and they beat the bottom two teams and narrowly lost to Lynch 28-24. It's also worth noting they're within a touchdown of Prestonwood, albeit Prestonwood was banged up for that game. Junior quarterback Luke Lawrence has stepped in for the Eagles following an injury to senior Ian Pulte in that Parish game. Lawrence is a dual threat guy and will have to be accounted for in both facets of the game. He'll look to hit senior wide receiver Drew Lowry and let guys like Garrett Sims and Henry Ublo share the rock in the ground game. Overall, I genuinely have no idea where I go in this game. Both these teams, like I said, are like the parallels of each other in the different divisions. Yet again, if I have two Division I teams that I think are dead even from a resume standpoint, I'm still taking the Northern team. Like I said on the previous preview, I'm sticking to my guns here. I think I like what Lawrence has done. I thought there'd be a pretty significant step down from Pulte because I've been very high on him since I saw him last season. However, he's performed very, very well. I like the culture a lot. I like Marshall Tucker a lot. I do think that Legacy has the guns to get this done. Any team playing against Garrett Tyser is going to make me nervous because he's incredibly talented, as well as Avon Houston in that secondary. It'll be interesting to see if Legacy has any fear of that talented secondary or if they're just going to go in guns blazing. All that being said, I'm taking the Eagles in this game. It will be interesting to see if Ryan Schroeder does the same, but first we're going to turn to Walker Lott to hear his analysis.
Yeah, they should fear that secondary. I've been watching Evan Houston's film. Uh, he had 0 touchdowns allowed in man this year. He's been truly locked down corner for the Buttons this year. Especially gets a good receiving core like Legacy has. That's good to have for Central Catholic. Um, this game is always a very interesting one. I think they both have D1 potential on both sides of the ball, on both teams. This is going to be a good one. Frisco has to make the drive down to San Antonio, and San Antonio, especially Central Catholic, is one of the hardest places to play. And all of TXPS, that place is always electric. But I'm gonna take the Eagles going into Central Catholic and getting the job done. I just like you always say, Wes. I think having games in the North just make you more competitive. You know the level you have to play against, and I think again this is one of those times that just happens to go the North's way. Fly Eagles, fly! Give me Frisco Legacy.
Ryan Schroeder, I'd be surprised if you picked against Legacy in the spot, but well, I guess we're going to see.
Didn't you know I'm a massive Central Catholic fan? No, I'm just kidding. No, give me the Legacy Eagles off rip, man. I mean, truly, it's been a season that after last season, right? You didn't know how the season was going to look with some of the guys that you lost, but also you brought some guys in. You bring Prestonwood kid. I always forget his name. Sorry.
Marshall Tucker.
Marshall Tucker. You bring other guys in. Team looks good. Ian Pulte goes out. Doesn't matter. You got Luke Lawrence in there. And a guy that I kept basically disrespecting because I kept saying our special teams was incredible at Legacy, but I just never said his name. I'm going to say his name. 2026 junior Jack Drygas, I hope is how you say his name. I should have confirmed that, but Jack Drygas is the best special teams guy in all of private school. And when I say that, I'm confident in it because every team apparently is not good at special teams. You know who's good at special teams? Legacy Christian Academy. Okay, dude. You ready for this? Let me just read it out for you. This year alone, by the way, he hit a 51-yarder against Assertion, a 56-yarder versus Grace Prep. That's his season long. 47 against Bishop Dunn, a 25 against Bishop Lynch, and in the Liberty game, the only 3 points Legacy had to stop them from being shut out was a 45-yard field goal. He is incredible. He's definitely the best kicker in all of private school, and he's shown it this year. 56 yards in TXPS? Are you kidding me? Like, that's insane. Shout out Jack Dreygus. I don't know why, or I hope I'm saying that right. I don't know how we haven't talked about you. I kept saying how good the special teams was at Legacy. I didn't give you your flowers, especially when I've been hating on the rest of private school for their special teams. I should have shouted you out. In that same vein, though, obviously the drive down to San Antonio is going to be tough, but I think these guys got it. You got something to prove, right? The Bishop Lynch loss definitely stings. You know, that was not one of those losses that I thought you would have had on the schedule. And this is how you prove it. You go to Central Catholic, you go to San Antonio, and you give it to them in this game, in hopes that you can maybe pinch off something against Antonian and then try to make your way back to one of those D1 teams that you lost to earlier this year. But or one of those top 3 teams that you lost to earlier this year. But I think it's a good road. I think Legacy's got a great path, if I'm being completely honest. One of the better paths in this situation.
Yeah, definitely so. That game being at Central is an underrated storyline because that's probably the most electric atmosphere in TXPS. That's still on my bucket list to go cover a game there at some point, but we'll see if the raucous button crowd can make any difference in that game, which should be a close one regardless. Let us move down to Division II, where we will see Fort Worth Christian versus Hyde Park. A 2 versus 3 seed matchup, we will see Fort Worth Christian take the drive down to the Hill Country to take on Hyde Park out of Austin. The Panthers have had a solid year, going 6-4 and 4-2 in district, with good wins over Grace and Brentwood, and a 1-point loss at the hands of Brookhill at home. Regents also handled them solidly, 35-13. Hyde Park is solid in the trenches with Mason Parrish at 6'5", 270, Wyatt Smith at 6'3", 245, and Hudson Fitzpatrick at 6 foot 250. They also have sophomore Westlake transfer quarterback Crawford Moffitt, who has done well with weapons such as Hayden Bechtel and Houston Shaw. Overall, this is another team that is decent. They're not going to beat the upper echelon of the division. They'll carve through the bad teams, and the middle tier is a toss-up. That description could be used verbatim on Fort Worth Christian. There are no wins against good Division II teams on the schedule. However, they've handled all of the inferior opponents they've played, whether that's Southwest Christian, Trinity Christian Lubbock, and Faith. While they're still falling to all the juggernauts, Second Baptist, All Saints, and we'll call Midland an average team. Quarterback Landon Gigliotta has had a solid season, but they're missing star wide receiver Cade Cropholler. That will hurt. Providing he is still out, but Grant Gali is more than capable of making big plays. However, the best player on the field will unquestionably be senior defensive end Tucker Ashford. And between him and 6'4" junior Adam Burns and Luke Stroud, this Cardinals defense should be stout enough to make this a grinding affair. And that's who I'm going to go with. I've been burned twice taking Fort Worth Christian on this program so far. You would think I've learned my lesson. I'm going to continue to put my nose down and say it. Their district straight looks good, all things considered. They beat Southwest Christian. They shut out TCS and only a 2-point loss to Midland. And they kept it within 30, I guess, of All Saints, which is all you can really say in that spot. All that being said, I think this is finally the spot that Fort Worth Christian breaks through. They get a playoff win. I'm riding with the Cardinals. Walker.
I'm going to go the opposite way. I'm going to go Hyde Park in this scenario. This is going to be my wild card pick. And I just think I really like this team. And Fort Worth Christian hasn't proved to me, I think, this year that they're truly legit. Especially with Cropholler out, the offense has kind of been struggling. Like a high-powered offense, right, that we think should be going crazy, only put up 21 on 19 on Midland, 27 on SES, 17 on TCS Lubbock. Like the offense has kind of been stagnant recently. Yes, Grapevine Faith, they won 49-14, but Grapevine Faith. You know what I mean? Like, and I think wins for Hyde Park impressed me more, and especially their game against Regents. Yes, they lost, but it was 35-13. So that's only a 3-score loss against Regents, which most teams haven't been able to get even that close all year against these guys. I like how they've been doing really well in district. I know the Brook Hill loss is a little weird, but overall, I think it's really good. I'm gonna take Hyde Park to win this. I know that kind of might be a crazy pick, and I will actually be at this game. So I will be down there in Austin. My first time for any of us to ever be at Hyde Park. I'm excited to be down there. But I like Crawford Moffett. I like the film is there, and I like Houston Shaw. Like I've talked about all these guys. I think they finally get it done and win in the first round and give me the Panthers.
Ryan Schroeder, we're split for the first time. Side are you taking?
I mean, the problem is exactly what Walker said. The offense is not up to par of what the defense is, right? The defense is just this high level affair, and you lose Cropholler, and that's another asset to the offense that is now down on an offense that should have been more productive than it's already been this season. Obviously, I agree. The defensive line is truly going to be a crazy match for Hyde Park to deal with, especially when Hyde Park's district does not compare to the district that I feel like or not to the full district. There are the powerhouses like Regents and All Saints in both, but I think Midland is better than the average team that they played in that Hyde Park had to play in their district. And with that being said, I think Fourth Christian has played the tougher teams in total. And with that, I think they're more in a position to play a higher level of ball, whether that becomes on the defensive side or the offensive side. I think they step up. I think this happens. At least you got to win one because you know what's coming the next week. You got All Saints. So give me Fourth Christian in this one, and you can kind of already tell where I'm going next week.
Yeah, it's still kind of fallen on the old adage that the tougher district, all things equal, I'm gonna take the team out of the tougher district.
A little bit.
I'm not really hedging my bets with that strategy. I'm kind of going all in with it this episode. So we're gonna see after this week, it's either gonna be penthouse or outhouse. So hopefully it is the former. But we will keep it in Division Two, where we see Brownsville St. Joseph take on Lutheran South. Lutheran South will take 77 down to the Rio Grande Valley to do battle with the top seed out of District 3. LSA started the season 4-0 with big wins over SPC 3A champion Houston Christian and Hyde Park, but they struggled against the top dogs in Second Baptist, TWCA, and Fort Bend Christian. Juniors Braden Robinson and Asia Bradford are the standouts on this squad with 22 combined touchdowns on the season. This Pioneer team can get you with the run or the pass. And both those guys get it done on defense as well, with 2 interceptions for Robinson and 2 forced fumbles for Bradford. However, they're facing the number 1 seed out of District 3. But what does that really mean? It means you're better than Victoria St. Joseph's, San Antonio Christian, and St. Anthony. That's not saying a whole lot. Granted, St. Joseph's average margin of victory against those teams has been 39, so they're doing what they're supposed to, and they can't control that portion of the schedule. The one decent team they rubbed up against was Regents, who beat them 49-14. However, senior athlete Claudio Torres will undoubtedly be the best player on the field. 34 touchdowns, 985 receiving yards, 1,400 rushing yards, 5 interceptions. This is an MVP caliber season that we haven't spoken a whole lot about this year. Claudio Torres is really that guy. I think the matchup here is can the St. Joseph's O-line of De La Cruz, Osio, and Garza pave the way up front and wash down Lutheran South's front? I'm going to be honest. This movie looks a lot like 2022 to me, where St. Joseph's blitzed through the district except for Regents, and they got upset round 1 by TWCA in that District 3, District 4 matchup. Yet again, I'm not smarter than the numbers in front of me. Give me the Pioneers. This is why I brought up that question to start the episode, because from a pure player matchup, I'm taking the team that has Claudio Torres on it. No one has really stopped him this year, but they haven't played great opponents. I think LSA's district is obviously not. I know it's much harder with Second Baptist, TWCA, and Fort Bend. And St. Joseph's doesn't have a team that sniffs any of those teams that they played in their district. The one game I can go off of to see is that Regents game, and they got smacked around. All that being said, I'm sticking to the strategy. I'm taking the team from the better district, and I'm taking Lutheran South to win this game. Walker.
it kind of comes back to the question you asked at the beginning, right? Are you going to pick on the player? Or are you going to pick on the team? And in this circumstance, I'm going to pick on the player. I'm sorry. In this circumstance, I'm going to pick on the team, and I'm going to go Pioneers in this one. You didn't even talk about John LeBlanc, which I think he's had a pretty good year so far. I don't think he's a upper echelon quarterback and taps this year, but I think he does a really good job getting into his guys. And there's 26s and 27s on this team that are really, really good, that are new to this team and have finally come into their own these past couple weeks. TWCA loss was rough, yes, but like they have dudes, and I think they get it done here. But I've seen guys will their teams to wins, and if anyone can do it, it's Claudio Torres. Like you said, that's an MVP type year that we haven't talked about much. And I know we said it after the Brownsville game or a couple weeks ago that like I made that case of like we need to talk about him more. We do. That's an unbelievable set line. I didn't even know that. That's insane. Defense too. Truly, truly, what a player. College coaches, I know some of y'all actually watch this. Go look at him. Truly, like it's stupid what he's doing down there in Brownsville. Um, anyways, I like this team. They're good players. I think they have guys from top to bottom that are good pieces on most teams. That would be great pieces on most teams. And so give me the Pioneers.
Ryan Schroeder, we're both on the side of Lutheran South. Which way are you going?
So I want to make sure I'm getting this right. LSA has a guy, he's a running back. He listed as a fullback corner. Scott Farron. I don't know how to say his name fully. But from what it looks like, and I'm assuming it's because they put the stats in every week, so I know that's true. Scott Farron hasn't played since the Second Baptist game. Assuming he got hurt in the Second Baptist game, he was their leading rusher for the first 5, 6 games of the year. And that's when they got the wins over Houston Christian, Hyde Park, JCS. Like those were those big wins. That was when they got 35 points on St. John's. Without him, they haven't been able to put that same type of numbers up. I don't know a lot about this kid, don't know anything about him, but him not being there and for them the season to fall off after that, especially against teams that, I mean, I was really high on LSA at one point, right? And then I got to go back on the other side of the ball too. St. Joseph, St. Joe's that we don't really know a lot about, a total 9-1 season. I don't know if y'all know this, but that Economides team, whatever, 6A UIL. Carroll, 5A UIL. Veterans Memorial, I think, is a 4A. Raymondville is 4, something like that. Those are all high level UIL teams. And that Carroll game, the 5A one they won. By the way, it's not Carroll from
No,
Not South Lake.
Not South Lake. This is Corpus Christi Carroll. But at the end of the day, still a 5A team, right? And that was a good win. This is gonna sound really crazy because I was really high on LSA for a long time. I think that injury was bad. I think he was a key asset to the team. That fullback that I've now forgot his name, so give me 2 seconds. So, quick, Aaron, that's bad. That's a bad loss for the season. I'm assuming he's done for the entire year, which is why he hasn't played since. On that alone, and maybe against my pick record's best side, the 5 o'clock game on Friday night, give me Brownsville St Joseph.
I like that.
I rock with it. We got to have some difference on the program. Yet again, any of the past 4 games that I've mentioned, there's not a bad pick here. It's all literal coin flips. This is why I said the pick record will be decided off of this episode, just because it's crazy the parity we have in the first 4 games, and we will see if that translates to the final game we will preview here on the episode: Hill Country School of Austin versus Dallas Covenant. Hill Country has not succumbed to the pressures of 11-man football in year 1, concluding the regular season by earning a playoff berth in TAPS Division III. Hill Country earned wins over both of the John Paul schools not in Plano, as well as Somerset, while notably almost knocking off 9-1 New Braunfels Christian. This team is led by senior quarterback Jacob Raspberry with an impressive 32 passing touchdowns on the season, 17 of which have gone to junior Ty Vasek, who also has recorded 5 interceptions on the season. Looking at Dallas Covenant, the Knights are 7-3 off of that big win over Shelton to claim second in District 2. Covenant is sneakily better than expected, only losing by 6 to Colleyville Covenant, 11 to DC, and winning convincingly over the rest of their district slate. Senior quarterback Leighton Horan looks solid, as do his weapons, and junior athlete Jack Henry Blakesley and senior wide receiver Benjamin Golick. Overall, I think Covenant's defense is what wins them this game. They have 4 shutouts on the season, and they held Dallas Christian and Covenant to 24 and 13, respectively. I think we get stuck a lot of times talking about high-powered offenses. I think defense is what really wins you games in the playoffs. I know it's a cliche, and it's probably beaten to death. However, I think that's what separates Covenant in the spot. And that's not an aspect of this team that we've talked a whole lot about, is how well their defense has played on the season, especially, holding Shelton's running back he had, I think, a couple, maybe he had 2 touchdowns, I think. For a guy that's had 32 on the season, two's not a bad number to have. That being said, for all of those reasons, I'm taking Dallas Covenant to beat Hill Country School of Austin. But regardless of outcome, an incredibly impressive showing by Hill Country School of Austin in their first year in TAPS Division 3 football. Walker Lott.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting because this is, welcome to the big teams, and it's going to be interesting to see how Hill Country can do. I'm going to pick Dallas Covenant. They're the more proven team in TAPS Division 3 this year. I like Ben Golick and like the pieces they have, and I don't know enough about Hill Country to really pick them in this manner. I do like that they are competing in DAPS Division 3, and I do think this is maybe a team that can put some points on Covenant. But I think I'm going to go the more proven team in this scenario. So give me Dallas Covenant.
Ryan Schroeder for the final time this episode. Who are you taking?
Yeah, I mean, I love the story from Waco Live Oak, right, and Austin Hill Country. Both two teams having exceptional years. On the surface of moving up to 11-man football, it's not easy, right? To move up, especially to D3 from 11-man as well. Not even D4, but enough kids to now move up to D3, playing some high-level teams. And they get stuck with Dallas Covenant first round. In the same vein, though, I think Dallas Covenant has proven well. Like you said, the Shelton game that Wes went to this past week was definitely a good showing for sure. The Dallas Christian game is one of the most telling games I've ever seen in my entire life. That is insane. And then overall, just multiple shutouts this season. In the first 60 games of the season, you had 4 shutouts. I mean, that's incredible, right? So Dallas Covenant has truly had a tremendous year themselves. And I think on the surface, I can truly say that Dallas Covenant is a better team. However, Austin Hill Country has had a great year 1 in 11-man football.
They certainly have. We will see how that game turns out, as well as the other 4 on the slate. Gentlemen, this is probably the most competitive slate that we have picked all year.
Yeah.
I'm incredibly excited for it, as the week 1 of playoffs always seems to be. It'll be fun. We will be here to recap it this following Monday and then give you another preview the Thursday after, as we are rolling into the playoffs. As always, that will conclude our content for this episode. Thank you for listening. As always, I've been 130, your hosting crew, Wes Tolleson. Walker Lott and Ryan Schroeder have fantastically been themselves. We will see you in the Week 12 recap on Monday. See you later.